Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, red.olaughlin here. We're on The Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And today, one of my good friends here in the Houston area, he's an attorney. He's also an author. We've shared many discussions over the years, a lot before for COVID, but really neat guy. Just looking so forward to the conversation today. So with that, Russell Little, please join us.
I'm so happy to be here, Red. We've talked so many times about your books and about what you're studying, and I was excited to see that I could be on this with you.
Well, right now you're in you're in path of the hurricane, so we understand that if things go dark, there's a reason, and at some point in time you may rejoin us, but it's not gonna happen. But if it does, we know why, so that's fine. You're an attorney, and you've been in Houston for a while, and so let's start with that. When did you decide to become an attorney, and why?
Well, it's a weird story, Red. When I was a little boy, I had learning difficulties. I couldn't speak, so I had to go to a learning specialist. Nobody could really understand what I was saying till the second grade, and I had learning disabilities. And so they were always, and this was back in the 60s and 60s when it wasn't really a thing to help, especially boys that were having learning disabilities. And so they were constantly giving my parents counseling. And one of the things they told them was that I should, since I had reading problems, I should read the newspaper every day. So I started as like third grade reading the newspaper every day. And the place that I read was the editorial page. And so from the third grade on, I was reading the editorial page every day, every school day before I went to school, and reading about politics and issues. And so from a very early age, I wanted to be an attorney from that. I came from a blue collar family. So it was alien to want the type of things that I wanted, but that's how it started. It started from having reading problems and having to read the editorial page every day. It's a strange thing, but that's how it started. And that's when I began wanting to be an attorney.
Now, you're a native Texan. Was there a reason you picked out certain schools to go to?
Yes. Now I went to 5 undergraduate universities. I didn't really care where I went to undergraduate school because I knew one thing. I wanted to go to the University of Texas Law School. I love Texas. I watched their football team with my mom as a little boy. I was from the strange family of my father really didn't like football, but my mother was one of those football crazy moms. And so I would watch Texas play. I remember watching Texas win the national championship in the 60s, watching it with my mother. And I loved the school. And as I got to high school and I started studying where I wanted to go to law school and what I needed in college, undergraduate school, to achieve an acceptance at the University of Texas, I knew that University of Texas Law School is where I wanted to go because that was the premier university in the state of Texas for law. So that's where I wanted to go. And after that, throughout my undergraduate time, my only intention was to make sure I made straight A's the entire time because that was the only way a poor kid like me was going to be able to get into the University of Texas Law School. And I made 1B the whole time I was in college, and that was in bowling. I can't explain that. But everything else was an A, and I knew I had to do it to get into the law school. And that's quite unusual because I graduated out of 600 kids in my high school graduating class. I graduated 392. So I was like a C student. And I graduated number 1 at Texas Tech to get into the University of Texas Law School because I knew I had to do it.
It's interesting. I interviewed an engineer once, and his grade point average is 3.98. So I said, "What did you make a B in?" He said, "Weightlifting." I said,
Yeah.
"Okay."
See, it's the same thing. What was his excuse?
Well, he wasn't much of a weightlifter. Let's put it this way: he had very lean body, but there's no muscle mass to go with it. But why he ever chose that one to take as a class, knowing that he thought, well, yeah, maybe you think you can do well, but it's interesting because we're having a problem with the solvent recovery system at our company, and I blew him off because he had a long beard and just real shabby kind of guy, very smart. And about 10 days later, I get this 40-page report saying, here's 8 different ways that you can fix that solvent recovery system, along with estimates on costs of. Anyway, I was blown away by his writing and his ability to analyze something he knew nothing about at that time. And I hired him, and he saved us $2 million the first year just in production costs on the floor. So anyway, it's just little things.
And you look like a genius for doing it, didn't you, Red?
It never hurts to hire the right people. You know that.
Exactly.
Okay, so you became a lawyer. Did you move to Houston at that point in time, or did you practice somewhere before you came here?
No, I did not. When I got out of law school, the week after I got out, I married a Houston girl. And then we moved to Amarillo, and I worked for a congressman that was campaigning for office. And we did that for about 5 months. And one day, my wife came out of her apartment, and it was a very nice apartment, and in Amarillo, and there were tumbleweeds blowing across the parking lot. And she called me and said, "I'm moving back to Houston. If you want to be married, I'll see you there." Click. And we've been married 41 years, so that tells you why I moved to Houston.
Okay, so tumbleweeds drove you to Houston.
No, my wife drove me to Houston. The tumbleweeds ran her back to Houston. She was a city girl, and she wanted to stay a city girl.
understand. The specialties you have as basically you kind of laid the groundwork for your writing of books. So let's talk about your specialty. Why do you choose what to specialize in?
Okay, well, that's an interesting point too. So when I got to Houston, I was hired by a trial law firm. And so for about 7 years, I tried basically car accident cases before juries. And that's a real rush for a while, but after a while, you're doing the same thing. So after about 7 years, I decided, enough with the car accidents. I want to do something different. So I went out on my own. I started doing both criminal law, and then I found that I had a real skill at family law. And the chaos that is family law, I actually operated better in. It's ironic that some of the ways a person's brain works can be interpreted as a learning deficiency when they're a child, but on the other hand, becomes an advantage as an adult. And that's the way it worked with me. All of a sudden, my learning deficiency went from not being able to work on one thing for 8 hours to I could work on 8 things for 8 hours. And therefore, the chaos of a trial of a courtroom wound up being my advantage over my opponents. And so I evolved into the last 25 years of my practice into being a family law or a divorce trial lawyer. And that's really where I found my niche. And I dealt with people, undescribable problems, and I dealt with matters that and characters that you come across some people, they're just not like everyone else. And those were people that I wanted to write about. And I was working on books all through my career, but the problem is you get busy with being a father and a husband and your career. And sometimes it takes something extra to push you over the limit so you can finish those books. And that's what I needed.
So Murder for Me is your book. And you
Murder for
started
Me
that.
was
Go ahead.
Murder for Me was my first book. It first came out a few years ago, and then it was re-released under my new publisher in May in preparation for the next book, which ironically is Murder by Storm, which has a hurricane in it. And as we speak here, there's a hurricane looming over Georgia.
And so the experiences you had in the courtroom, the people you dealt with, observed, become integral to the development of the plot of this book. Is that true?
It's crucial. It's crucial. The main antagonist in this book is a merging of specifically two people I came across, and who gave me the idea for it. And they're so undescribably unique and so puzzling in their skills that it was something I wanted to write about. And in Murder for Me, there's also some inabilities and weaknesses of others that I wanted to write about. And so I merged them into this story of basically a battle between a very, very skilled woman antagonist, a detective that doesn't seem to know when to stop, and an attorney that was losing the grasp of reality.
Okay. Did you model these off of people you know as other attorneys or detectives or whatever, or they just kind of fell out as part of the plot development?
I got to say that it was a merging of different characters,
Okay.
and just the intellectual struggle in writing that book was to make a beautiful story and to communicate. For example, the lawyer that was losing grasp on reality. The intellectual battle or struggle in writing about him was to make the reader emotionally feel the struggle with him trying to hang on to his own sanity. In the As far as the antagonist, who's Marilyn in the story, it was trying to communicate to the reader so they could understand and perceive her strengths and her weaknesses. You know, one of the things about sociopaths and that sort of thing, in my experience, in my practice, was they're very skilled at handling the front end of their projects and plans, but they never really think out the back end of their projects and plans. And I wanted to put that in a literary form to say. And of course, the detective was actually modeled on a particular person, actually someone that's in my larger family that is comically exactly like the guy in the book.
Now, when you have these characters, they're fictional. Do you have images or photographs or anything that you use in order to keep your brain aligned with that character when you're writing about them?
Okay. I don't know how strange I want to sound on your show, but I'm going to tell you this story. So, when I was writing Murder for Me in the book right before it, which turned out to wind up being not a book, but a character development, I didn't realize it at the time, and I didn't realize it until it was finished that I hadn't done a book. I had done a character development, and now it was time to do the book. Was I was working on Marilyn, and you know, Red, because you're a writer, you know, when you're writing, you become completely absorbed. You sit down, you start writing, and you look up, and it's been 4 hours or 5 hours, and your blood pressure's up, and because you're into your characters and your stories. Well, I went one step further than that. I actually had a dream one night while I'm in the middle of writing that Marilyn came to me and was yelling at me because I'd gotten her name wrong. I'd actually named her something else in the book that I was writing. She said, "My name's not that. My name is Marilyn." And I woke up in the morning and I told my wife, I had this dream, and Marilyn came to me. She's like, "Who's this woman you're saying, Marilyn, that you're dreaming about?" And I said, "It's my character. She came to me and said her name is Marilyn." She just kind of held her hand out to me and said, "You're creeping me out a little bit. Don't talk about that anymore." So that tells you how vivid these people are in my own mind.
Yeah, subconscious mind is an amazing thing, and it can talk to you just as easily as anything else. You can feel textures, you can hear things, you can smell things. It's just, I mean, it's amazing when you start analyzing dreams and the response you get. But sometimes you have a dilemma, and you go to bed and you let your subconscious mind solve the problem. And somewhere, maybe subconsciously, that wasn't the right name. Doesn't matter, because boom, uh, it fixed it for you, right?
Exactly. And if you've ever read the book Dreams by Freud, he goes into that. I know that it was, 120 years ago that Freud wrote the book Dreams, but it's quite a dramatic explanation of his theories on it. And, and it's so dramatic. Frankly, I haven't been able to. I tried to read the book twice. I had to stop because it was so disturbing. So I recommend you, if you haven't read Dreams by Freud, you read it.
Dreams by Floyd.
Freud, Sigmund Freud,
Oh,
the great
Freud.
psychotherapist. Yes. It's a great book
I'm
that I
making it.
haven't finished.
I talk with some experts in the field of dreams over lunch and things like that, and it's interesting if you pay attention to your dreams. Like I say, I can smell aromas, I can feel textures, I can feel lots of things in my dreams. People talk to me. It's amazing how vivid everything is at the moment. And then sometimes you wake up and you remember for about zero point 0.3 seconds, and then no matter what you do, you can't resurrect it. But
Exactly. And I'm that way too. I don't remember my dreams more than a few seconds, which is why it's so bizarre that I remembered this dream. It's
and then
bizarre.
and then sometimes I can pick up a dream where I left off the night before or earlier in the night and keep going. And it's just I've done that several times where I've only had one dream where it was future, and I've had some dreams where I knew I was dreaming, and I would just constantly go back to wherever I was. So I pay a lot of attention to that just in my own personal life because it's exciting and weird, and you never know. Maybe I'll end up writing a novel and I'll need to pull some of that stuff in. But okay, so you have an abyss of characters from your legal days, and they become characters in your book. Now, is the second book that's coming out very shortly, is that an extenuation of the same people in the first one, or is there new characters?
Oh, absolutely. Uh, I got three main reactions from my first book. I got a lot of good reactions, but uh, you know, it's funny. Uh, in the first book, Marilyn does, I communicated what she was doing, how she was doing it, how she was manipulating, but the readers wanted to know more about her. They wanted to know, why is she that way? What made her that way? I just that was the biggest questions I got, and so in the second book I wanted to explain who Marilyn was more, why she was the way she was, why she had the ability she did, and actually I found the intellectual challenge of writing the second book was to, as a man, to write in a clear perspective of a woman. And and that was my intellectual challenge. And I found it very hard. I had to work very hard to do it. It took a lot of rewrites uh, to do it right. But I wanted to explain that. And at the same time, uh, I had gone through Harvey. I think that you went through Harvey too in the
Yep.
greater Houston area. And I live in the mountains of Georgia now, but uh, I was in Houston and went through Harvey. Uh, I lived downtown, right across the park from where the thousands of refugees were taken when they were wiped out. And I spent the week helping over there, taking care of refugees. And then I spent weeks afterwards uh, helping complete strangers that I never saw before and I never saw again completely gut their house so they could start repairs. And it was a life-changing experience. And if you've gone through a hurricane, you know the unbelievable sights that if you didn't see it, you would never believe it. For example, and I hope I don't see this over the next 2 days in Atlanta, but for example, manholes exploding up and water in a fountain pouring up 2 stories, blowing up out of the manhole, or complete strangers risking their life to save other people that they don't know and they don't know anything about. They don't know their political beliefs or don't care what race they are. They're just trying to help people. And I wanted to tell that story too. And frankly, because of all the time I've been in court and my career, I knew what like what happens to the police during a hurricane? What happens to evidence when there's floodwaters? And I thought that would make it a perfect instance to tell the other stories I wanted to tell and also put a murder thriller in the middle of a hurricane. and tell the stories of what a hurricane's like. And so that's what I did.
Flooding is one thing. We just had Hurricane Beryl here in Houston a couple months ago. We were without electricity for 7 days. You end up with flood damage in your home, water's up 2 feet, 6 foot. I mean, I've had friends with amazing damage to their house, but they're resilient. You're 10 days without electricity and you manage to survive and you stay here and you rebuild. It's hard, but as you say, you help people. It's an experience you don't want, but it's an experience that you accept, especially when you're of value to others. So, and maybe that's the reason God put us in those positions to help others. Anyway, is there a third and fourth book in this series with Marilyn?
There is. I don't want to go into much about it. It's called Murder by Trial. And one of the things that I don't think that people really appreciate or understand because they're not in the system is the difference between facts and truth and the facts and truth that a jury hears and perceives and makes their decisions on. Those are two different things. And so in my next book, I want to show that. And also, if you've ever read Dunces of the Confederacy of the Dunces, it was a Pulitzer-winning book from a writer who only wrote one book in New Orleans. It has this unbelievable and memorable character. And so my challenge in the next book is, in much excess of anything I've done before, I want to create characters that people cannot forget, that they think about afterwards, that they think about years later, like I do that character in that book. And so those are my intellectual challenges for the third book, and also to complete the story.
Okay, so your characters are going to be alive and well in future books. The murder,
not all of them, a few of them.
Murder, and from Dragnet, we understand just the facts, ma'am. Is going to be part of the perspective of being able to interpret the thing. So now you've written children's books also, right?
Right, which is bizarre.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Red, you've known me. We've been on several shows together before. You know what I'm like. I'm not a very feely person. So, I was a real dad. I was a family nerd as I was raising my children. I wanted to be in my children's lives. But one of the things I wasn't good at is things like parents' night at the school or something like that. I just always hated that stuff. But I have granddaughters now. And so there was a grandparents' day at my granddaughter's preschool. And my daughter told me I was going. So I go. And so we're in her class. They're showing this stuff. I've got a smile on my face because my daughter told me to have a smile on my face. And my granddaughter I'm just like any other grandfather. You're crazy about your grandkids. Comes up with this stuffed elephant and shows me and says she loves elephants. And I was like, boom, there's a story. And so after that, and we were released, I went to a cigar bar and I sat down and I wrote a story about a little girl going to the zoo and a baby elephant getting away, and the little girl saves the elephant, right, from getting in trouble. And then I showed it to one of my editors, and they said, "Oh my gosh, we want to put this. We have a group of stories we're putting together in a book, and this has got to be in it. But you got to write another one. Well, I can do that. So I wrote another one uh, about a baby rhinoceros and befriending the baby elephant, and my granddaughter helping them, because I wanted to have a story with my granddaughter in it. And they loved the story so much they put them in the book. And so those are the stories were also designed. I have I've always had a real affinity toward the larger African fauna and a concern about the animals of Africa surviving and not becoming extinct. And one of the ways that they have found to save those animals is to invest the local communities into saving them, not taking hunters to kill them, but saving them for sightseers. And I just wanted to communicate to young children how important and lovable these animals are, so they would feel the same way I feel about these animals, like elephants, rhinoceroses, hippos, the major lions, the major fauna of Africa. So that's what I did.
No alligators or pythons or anything like that?
Alligators need to be worn on boots.
You mentioned, I was going to bring this up anyway, but you mentioned cigar bar. So obviously, you found a cigar bar in your new locale. You have been doing that now for quite a while. I remember you talking about those periodically. So have you changed your preference on cigars, or is that still evolving as you get older?
I'm a Perdomo Gordo man. I said that I smoke large, powerful cigars that, as they burn, they fight back at you.
My father-in-law smoked cigars, but changed to pipes later in life. My dad smoked cigars most of his life, and that was a real challenge because I'm the oldest of 9 kids, and we're in a sedan. My dad's smoking a cigar with the windows up. Yeah, that was way it was way back then. It was.
Let me tell you the way it is now, Red. The way it is now is I'm not allowed to come in the house in the clothes I wore at the cigar bar. I have to change clothes before I come in. Because it's not only am I not allowed to smoke anywhere around here except the patio, but I can't go into the house with the clothes I have on. So that's how much the world has changed since your dad had a cigar in the car.
But he apparently fell in love with them down in Brazil during World War II, and he's flying a lot down in that area. And they would hand make them down there anyway. Another story, another time. But when you're writing,
I like that story.
what's that?
I said I would like that story.
But you're writing. When did you start marketing your book? After you wrote it, or while you were writing it? And what kind of skills did you learn along the way?
Okay, well, I guess after I wrote the Murder for Me, but we've been promoting Murder for Storm by Storm for some time now, and it comes out October 22nd. So we've been promoting it quite a bit since then. The most important thing I've learned when I started the promotion was algorithms. Algorithms is the magic that controls everything. And if you want to market your book successfully, you've got to understand algorithms. You've got to understand what changes algorithms, and you've got to act accordingly. So that's what I learned early. And since numbers and math is something I have an affinity toward, I was able to understand it and understand what I needed to do to change it.
So as you learned more, you applied that and saw results that were favorable and kept doing it or tweaking it, making it better.
Exactly. Like, it's like Amazon has all these magic numbers that if you hit, it changes the algorithm of how they promote your book and where your book appears when someone's looking at other books. And since readers, the vast majority of readers buy more than one book at a time. And I always was thinking of 80% of my books are read by women. And a high percentage of the women that buy my book buys more than my book at the same time. So the question is, how do I affect the algorithm so my book gets in front of those potential buyers more? And because whenever you look for a book, like on Amazon or one of the other websites, when you buy one book or you're looking at one book, it suggests other books. Well, that's from an algorithm. So the question is, how do you affect the algorithm so your book is suggested? And once you understand that, that is the most effective marketing, because mathematically, I can go to a store and for 3 hours sit and ask people and to show my book, or I can work for an hour on my algorithms and how to adjust them and affect people all over the world that are looking at my particular book. You know, there's millions of books in the world. The question is, how do you get your book to the attention of those people that would be interested in it? And that's the challenge of marketing.
Sounds like you know more than the average bear. Okay, last question before we start wrapping things up. Tell us just a little bit about how you develop the covers for your Murder By series.
Okay. Well, there's two answers to that. When I released the first book, Murder for Me, the first time, I wanted a beautiful cover I could be proud of. And I concentrated hard on it. But that was before I understood algorithms. Once we reissued Murder for Me, and then we produced Murder by Storm, we had to redo the covers so that they were coordinated as the series came out with my publisher, Plum Creek Press. And they had an artist and expert work. And the idea is you want your book to look like what the readers expect books like yours to look like. Like if people that like murder mysteries have an expectation of what their covers should be, the algorithms will know what those covers are. And so you want to coordinate your covers so it's not too far from the top of the bell curve of what the expectations of potential readers and potential buyers are. And so your cover has to be within that narrow line of a bell curve. And the professionals that my publishing company have understood that and understood what I needed. And I'm very happy, especially Murder by Storm, because there's this big lightning streak that comes down the middle. I love the lightning.
Okay, so we're at the end of the show. How do people get in touch with you? How do they buy your books? Both from your, if you need legal help, you're in the Atlanta area. Is that where you're at now?
I'm in the mountains of Georgia, in Vinings, Georgia, right outside Atlanta.
Okay, so how do people get in touch? What's your preferred method of contact?
Well, they can find me at russelllittleauthor.com. That's my webpage. Or Russell's Stories on Facebook. And I respond to all my contacts. If you want to join my page at Russell Stories on Facebook, you have questions, that's where I actually let people know what I'm doing as an author. Interviews like today, right before this, I said, well, I still have, the hurricane is not hit yet, I still have power. Wish me luck on this interview. And so, if you want to know what I'm doing, you should get on there and you can ask me questions there. Below this, you can see where my email is at russell@russelllittle.net. And, but I really, the best place to both follow what I'm up to and to ask me questions is at my website and at Russell Stories on Facebook.
Okay, so from a perspective, you can buy the books on Amazon, but you can also buy them on your website. Your
Yeah,
website.
they should go. They should go to Amazon right
Okay.
now. And I'm sorry I didn't answer that part of the question. Murder for Me is on sale now. It's been on sale with the new cover since May. October 22nd is the launch date of Murder by Storm. They can pre-buy now, and I asked them to please do that. And October 22nd is when it comes out.
Okay. So for our audio audience, Russell Little author. Russell is Russell, and then Little, Little, author.com. So Russell Little. So you got 3 L's in a row on russelllittle.com. Then another website he has is Russell Little, RUSSELL, Little, LITTLE, .net. And so you can reach him by email at russell@russelllittle.net or just contact him through his website. And with that, Russell, I am super pleased that we had a chance to communicate today. I did not realize you had moved out of state, but I wish you the absolute best, and I'm sure at some point in time we'll bump into each other. I have a brother who lives in the Atlanta area, so next time I know I'm headed that way, I'll see if you're available and we can go pretend like we know what we're doing.
Okay, and I'm glad I still have power.
Take care, Russell, and we will catch you later on. Okay, with that, this is Red O'Laughlin on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Immediately following here in about 16 minutes, we have Talking Heads, and my show today is the beginning of probably a 6 or an 8-part series on health habits for 2025 that we start today. And we're talking about today, we're going to start on mindset and how do we get ourselves prepared emotionally to make changes in our lives that we may never have made before. And with that, I am going to say, catch you next week on the Wise Ones, and look forward to catching you on Talking Heads here in just a few minutes. So take care. Red O'Laughlin signing off of the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Bye now.